So I was sitting in history class watching a documentary from the 80s about the Midsummer Crisis, which was this whole thing where the Germans demanded to transport troops through Sweden and the king threatened to abdicate and the government almost collapsed, you know how it is. And it mentioned how Sweden had cracked the German cypher and was regularly reading German telegrams sent through Swedish lines. This confused me. How the hell had Sweden cracked the German cypher before the 22nd of June 1941? That's like 17 days before Alan Turing and its team at Bletchley Park cracked the Enigma. Well, my teacher didn't know, so I decided to look into it, which led me to finding this man, Arne Beurling. And if I can't tell anyone about him, I think I might explode. So, hence, I'm making this video. So sit down, grab a bowl of popcorn and some nondescript soda, and let me tell you the story of Arne Beurling. Please, I am desperate. No one wants to talk to me about it. Please don't go. No, please. Arne Beurling was born on the 3rd of February 1905 in Gothenburg to his parents Captain Conrad Beurling and his wife Eva Elisabeth Raab. At 19 years old, he decided to further his education at Uppsala University, one of Sweden's most prestigious schools, where he studied philosophy and math for 6 years, probably to the dismay of anyone who tried to make small talk with him. Up to nowadays. Well, I'm actually studying the moral implications of divisions with pi and the non-existence of free will to the golden ratio. Also, in combination with this, furthering my studies in pirating, I'm also... Before he finished up his education, he took lumpen, which is a 1 year of mandatory military service, where they promptly took one look at him and decided his strength lay more in numbers and codes and not laying in trench freak, so they signed him to the cryptology department. This was a good move on their part, as Arne quickly proved to be an excellent cryptologist, something that would come in handy later, but not right now, as after his military service was up, he went back to Uppsala University and worked as a teacher. But who cares about that? It's 1941 and Germany has chosen to ethnically cleanse someone who the Allies didn't consent to this time. So there's war in Europe once again. Arne has decided to heed his call and make a phone call to the head of the Swedish cryptology department and ask if he could rejoin, to which they said, yes. This was once again a good move on their part, as Arne would be a key member of the team who cracked the Soviet cipher just a few days before the start of the Winter War. And I can't understate how huge cracking the Soviet cipher was. It let Sweden feed Finland incredibly useful military intelligence through the entirety of the war. It's said that as soon as military planes would take off, Finland would receive a telegram from Sweden detailing the exact bombing locations. This is enough, of course, not to diminish Finland's crypto abilities, which my sources say were quite formidable as well. But as all you history buffs know, this valuable intelligence was not enough and Finland still lost the war. It was a disappointing but not unexpected result. At least the crisis was over, which was good because about a month later the Nazis decided that they needed to secure their supply of Swedish iron and decided to invade Denmark and Norway. So now they have a new crisis on their hands. Fun! To support their invasion of Norway, Germany demanded access to Sweden's telegraph network so they could communicate with their forces in Norway, which Sweden agreed to with the intent of tapping the lines and reading the German communications. They also were very afraid of saying no to the Germans. There was a problem. As the first messages started rolling in, the Swedes found that they were completely unreadable. Now, of course, this wasn't unexpected. A major world power in World War II not encrypting their messages would be ludicrous, but this was unlike anything the Swedish cryptology department had ever encountered before. This is the G-hem-verschlieber, nailed it, also known as G-skrivaren in Swedish, which translates to the G-writer in English. It's a German telegraph encrypting machine that takes a message you type out and runs it through 10 differently sized wheels that puts it out one of 893 billion. This number, predetermined positions. Then the machine spins the wheels around, which scrambles the message, and then it's scrambled twice more using binary addition for good measure. Then the message could be deciphered by another G-skriver with the wheels in the same position. I think I study social sciences, not electrical engineering. I don't have any real-life skills. Point is, it should have been impossible to decode any messages sent through G-skrivaren without having one yourself. So, the Swedish government, faced with tons of unreadable German telegrams, calls on the one man who can solve this impossible problem, Arne Beurling, who by all accounts has worked in cryptology for no more than 4 years. They sit him down, push a folder of encoded German telegrams across the table and utter only one word. To which he presumably nods his head, walks out of the room. He steps out of the building and walks all the way down to the Swedish equivalent of Bletchley Park, a crumbling building slated for demolition, rented by the Swedish government for the equivalent of $900 a month, accounted for inflation, with walls so dilapidated if you slam the doors too hard, pieces of the wall would come flying off, and this is all of this is real, look it up. And for some reason there was also rotten fish behind the fireplace, and he looks at all of this, he takes it in, he walks through the building, goes to his workroom, sets it all down, and he gets to Okay, that's probably not what happened. The first part, I mean, the part about the buildings, all real. But what did happen was only about 10% less crazy. They decided through either sheer desperation or pure brilliance, quite possibly both, they decided to assign only Arne Beurling to break one of the most advanced codes in human history. Let me repeat that. Not a team working under Arne Beurling. No, Arne Beurling and Arne Beurling alone. This madman, he fucking agrees to this clearly impossible task and armed with nothing but a pen, paper, and a day's worth of German communication, having never seen anything like Geoskriver in his life, and with no idea how it works, he gets to work. And guess what? He did it! The madman actually did it. They broke one of the most advanced codes in human history with nothing but a pen and paper, and if that's not crazy enough, guess how long it took? 14 days! It took him 14 days to crack one of the most advanced codes in the world. Something that no one has achieved before or since. That's the time it takes me to build up the courage to clean my room. You probably want to know how he did it, don't you, huh? Well, so do I!
In the mission to the host, do not try to leave the doors unlocked for your safety.
Okay, deep breaths. Arne Beurling didn't keep any notes on how he managed to crack the code, so for now it seems to be lost to history. When asked by a co-worker if he should not be writing down his process, he responded, "Nah, an illusionist never shows how he does it." An answer so incredibly infuriating, it makes me want to go back in time and punch him in the throat. Although he was apparently very good at fighting among everything else, as he beat the tar out of Ylvias Gildén, another cryptology expert, an amateur rugby player working on the project with him. So I guess he gets away with it this time. No matter his unwillingness to make his method known, it worked, and with the answer key in hand, the cryptology department could get to work manually decoding the telegrams letter by letter. That's a lot of work. Wouldn't it be easier if you had a machine to do all that for us? Well, don't you worry, as only 1 week / a week and a half after the cypher was cracked, Beurling had already drawn up a design for a machine that could do it automatically. This would be the first design of the app, the Swedish version of Geoskrivaren made to break the German cypher, making it the only crypto app in history worth trusting. Beurling can take all the credit for the app, however, as it was built and operated and maintained by another game named Vego Lindsten, who's not really relevant to the story, but he deserves the credit for this good job, goddamn. So Sweden had all this invaluable military intelligence. What now? What did they do with this information? As it turns out, not much. Neutral country and all that. I can only find 3 uses that in any way impacted the war. This does not mean that there are not more, but just that they're not widely known. 1. Sweden found out about Operation Barbarossa beforehand and warned the British about it and told them to tell the Soviets, which Stalin promptly ignored, but we tried. Number 2, the Swedish government spied on the German ambassador, the Prince of Swede, and read his reports to Berlin and corrected him when he got something wrong, which apparently was quite often, which is why you don't hire royalty. I'm afraid it's going to need a bit more of an explanation, so bear with me. When the decoders got information about German battle tactics, troop movements, troop placements, bombing targets, etc., it got delivered to the Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to brief the leadership. This information was delivered in letters that looked like this by one singular mail carrier. This mail carrier pretty quickly realized what he was delivering, and he also happened to be a devoted communist. Oh no! And he started to think to himself, is there anyone who I like would want this information? So he started to work as a spy for the Soviet Union and photocopied all the sensitive information and sent it over to them to be used against the Germans. Now, I can't bring myself to be too mad about this treason, as it did lead to a lot of dead Nazis, so swings and roundabouts. But this, like all things, eventually had to come to an end, as the guy who leaked the information eventually got caught aiding or abetting illegal abortions and got arrested. Sometimes history is stranger than fiction. Soviets tried to recruit this replacement, which did not work, and they ended up getting fed false information for the rest of the war, which, to put salt in the woods, lets the Swedes crack another Soviet cypher. But like rogue communist abortionists, the time of Sweden reading German telegrams was coming to an end, as the Germans eventually found out about the program. How, you may ask? Finland told them. It too, Finland! Apparently the Finnish attaché just saw the intelligence reports laying on a random table while visiting, and since the Germans were already on their back about Sweden, knowing so much about their troop movements, they just told them. But at that point, it was the end of 1942, the war had already turned against the Germans, so the Nazis could not really militarily retaliate against Sweden, so they just had to put in better machines that the Swedes broke after a month, so they just had to settle for rerouting the communications around Sweden, and as the telegrams dried up and the line fell silent, that was the end. I feel like there's something I'm forgetting. Oh shit, Arne Beurling. What was he up to? As it turns out, not much. He had been getting sidelined by the people leading the operation, as they did not like him very much because he was very loose with secrecy and protocol, which led to him playing a smaller and smaller role as the war progressed until he left the force at the end of the war. After that, he went back to Uppsala University for a few years before moving to America and being a guest teacher at Harvard before landing at Princeton and taking over Albert Einstein's old workroom. If you needed any more evidence that this guy was smart, at last dying in 1986 at the age of 81, having lived a remarkable life. That's the story of Arne Beurling. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and since you have come this far, I would be very happy if you would like the video. It took a lot of time to make, and I would like it if a few people saw it, so I'm not the only person in the world who knows about this man. Have a great day, and leave any suggestions for what I should cover next below. I'm thinking of doing maybe the Midsummer Crisis if people are interested. Anyway, enjoy what editing me put in for the outro.